So, GeoDaddy is about to return. It's actually been quite a while since his last rerun banner. Guys, guess how long it has been? Because if you look at this, it's actually have been a year. Yes, it was ever since last year's August. After looking at this, I was quite surprised that it's been a year since Zhongli been back. I guess as there's so many character rerun that takes such a long time, like some have been over a year at this point, that I guess some character having 1 year reruns kind of like a trend now in Genshin Impact, right? So it's a better time than ever once you've decided to pull for Zhongli if you have been saving up for him. However, for those of you who are still on the fence, this is going to be an important video since I will be discussing whether or not Zhongli is still a worth it character for you to pull at this point in time, considering there's so many characters that have been released as it is now patch 4.0. And so with that guys, let's just dive right in. Now first off, we just basically have a quick touch in terms of the most important point regarding Zhongli's kit and his playstyle. So Zhongli is the character that is basically a lifeline saver for your account of providing you literally the best shield in the game up until this point in time. Usually his main playstyle surrounds with building HP so that you can maximize the power of his shield. However, what's also good is that his other attacking power also scale off of his HP, especially with his burst, in which it also has the capability of dealing a ton of damage. Therefore, Zhongli is very free to play friendly. You don't really have to invest too much. He also just use, usually like the black tassel, and that is more than enough of a good weapon onto Zhongli. Slap HP onto him and he will be a very good character on your team. However, of course, that's not the only build that Zhongli has. He also have a couple of different playstyle. You can actually just build him like a normal DPS character of geo and crit damage, because of course, as we have mentioned, his bursts also deal a ton of damage, and building it this way actually yields you more damage power than just using HP, because that is missing out on crit ratio. And usually his shield is more than tanky enough that you can build him as a DPS build and he will still be doing fine. The main reason also being is that his E skill has rather low cooldown, so that generally before the shield even expired, you already have your E skill up, therefore recasting your shield is very much possible. However, providing you the best shield along with damage capability is not the only thing that Zhongli is capable of, but his kit also has one other important thing that let him shines over all of the other shield character in the game right now, is that he's got access to defense shred whenever his shield is active, which is a very important thing, as we know defense resistant shred is still a rare stuff in the game right now, and Zhongli is one of the few characters who have access to that. Therefore, in a way, he's also buffing your damage in the team. Now, talking about buffing damage, he is also the best character to be using Tenacity of Millith. Basically, it's kind of like a set that was made for him. Therefore, having the ability to buff your team a further 20% attack increase. So yes, looking at this, his support capability is just off the chart. Some other stuff he can do is, of course, he can set up his Stone Steely that definitely acts as a physical block that can help you blocks out enemies' attack. Climb on it to do with exploration, and also his burst helps you petrify your enemies up to almost 4 seconds, which is actually really important at times. Now he can also potentially become a physical DPS for your team, but I won't be going too in depth in terms of all of those, otherwise it will be a too long video, and we'll just touch on the most important thing, which is all the stuff that we have just discussed. And so with that everything in mind, we kind of want to look back on in terms of how good was Zhongli as a character before patch 4.0. Now if you're a Genshin Impact player that have been around since the start of Genshin Impact, because Zhongli was a character that was released in patch 1.1 if I'm not mistaken, so that's kind of like the second patch of Genshin. There was an absolutely huge drama in the Genshin community regarding Zhongli. Basically everyone who actually got him was so disappointed in how he performed, because he was an Archon and he was so cool in the Genshin Archon on story quests. So basically his build up character has been such a cool and tough character. However, when in terms of gameplay, it absolutely did not rise to the players' expectation, therefore disappointing so many people, causing a huge uproar in the community, so much so that Hoyoverse literally have to take action and basically make a change or physically a buff to Zhongli and then turning him to one of the best character we have in the game up until today. From my experience, Zhongli back then was actually the only character right now to have physically a direct buff from Hoyoverse. After that, there wasn't really anything else apart from Dendro reaction that arrived in patch 3.0. Other characters who have had major feedback also, like Dia, basically didn't have any buff afterwards, so poor Dia. But after that aside, ever since his buff was released, he is of course the best support character in the game that you can have, because actually having Zhongli in your team can technically remove you a requirement of having a healer because his shield is just so good. He's also the best character when it comes to supporting hyper carries in the game because of the major knockback this character usually have, and especially good for bow charger character. And so moving on to all the way to our current timeline, which is in patch 4.0, how good would Zhongli be in the current meta? Is that, guys, I would say Zhongli is basically still the same. Zhongli is still Zhongli, still the best support and shielding provider in the game. Not long before that, we did have Inazuma, which kind of introduced enemies that ignore shield, and yes, whenever this enemies is available, they can be very problematic because Zhongli's shield will have no effect against these kind of enemies. But other than that, later on Hoyoverse did not release any other enemies that have major impact on Zhongli's shield, so Zhongli's usage capability is still there. Currently in patch 4.0, we of course have our newest bow charger character, which is Lini. And of course, any of you who is maining Lini and have played with Lini a lot, we know that he is a character that of course loving shield. So Zhongli is definitely a character that plays a huge part on Lini's team, which is technically the major situation surrounding patch 4.0 and Zhongli at this point in time. So after all of those discussion, guys, we touch on the most important points of the video, which is Zhongli still a worth it character for you to pull in this current patch after so many characters have been released? Is that I say of course his value is still there, so definitely what he is doing best at, he is still very usable on your team. However, here's the biggest thing that you have to consider, guys, is that in all honesty, if you are someone who have invested into your account a lot, with you having already pulled for many characters to build different good teams on your account, you most likely haven't been using Zhongli in your team. Just like my personal experience, since there are so many good teams that can do such high reaction damage, especially Dendro reaction teams, the worst thing on Zhongli right now is that he is Geo, therefore he doesn't contribute into elemental reaction, or even worse, sometimes applying Geo can mess up your other character reactions. So it's kind of like he's there as a lifeline if you are finding the content was becoming a bit hard, or you are getting one shot by enemies, which actually happens frequently in the Abyss. So technically speaking, he can be based on the situation of your account. Zhongli is very much a valuable character at the earlier part of the game because he will make your life a lot easier, but then in the end game, when you've already got so many different teams that can just, you know, knock out enemies in one rotation, you don't really need Zhongli because you're technically isn't even taking damage, since you're doing so much damage and taking out your enemies almost instantly. However, guys, in terms of future proof, I would say that he would be an eternal character of Genshin Impact in terms of value, because I don't think there's going to be another good shielder in the game compared to Zhongli. The current shielder we have in the game right now, some actually comes quite close, but obviously at the end of the day, you're most likely just going to be choosing one shielder to put on your team, and of course that slot is going to be for Zhongli for sure. But something interesting to discuss also, guys, is that who knows, Hoyoverse might might improve Geo meta. Navia is coming soon, who is a Geo character, and I would say that so many is in love with this character right now, especially after playing, you know, the second Archon quest, which may prompt Hoyoverse to make good kits on her. Who knows, it might be a kit that actually scales off with shield, like the more shield available, the more damage she's able to do. Well, that's probably a bad kit, but Zhongli may play a very good part in Navia's team. Who knows? Many future Geo character is gonna be coming, so there are definitely still potential out there for Geo character, especially Zhongli as well. That should be everything I have to say regarding Zhongli in the current patch 4.0. I hope the video have been very informative and helps you out in terms of your decision making. If you do have any question or you are still on the fence, leave it down in the comment section, and Guy or some other lovely Genshin Impact player will be there to help you out. If you're new to the channel guys, don't forget to subscribe. It is a free way to support me, and also I do have a lot of giveaways, so that's going to be very beneficial for you too. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me till this part of the video, and with that I wish you a super day, and I will catch you on my next video.